that we have either that we have inherent sovereignty, that we are not the subjects or slaves of any other man, woman, or group of men and women, or you advocate the violence ideology at some degree or another. There is no in between, folks. There's no real gradations of government. Either you're an anarchist or you are an archonist. Either you know that we're already inherently free and sovereign, and you advocate the non-aggression principle of non-violence, or you are an archonist that advocates violence and the erroneous notion of the authority in man and some subset of humanity's right to rule, and the vast bulk of humanity having some sort of a moral obligation to obey their commands. That's archonism, otherwise known as statism. There's really no in between. All it is shades of violence. You could call it that. But you're still advocating violence. And that's for minarchists, constitutionalists, and otherwise. If you advocate government, you advocate violence because they're equivalent. Government is violence. It's the claim of authority and other people being your subject under your jurisdiction. You're their master. You could dictate arbitrary commands called laws, and other people have a moral obligation to obey it. And if you think that, you're wrong. You are wrong. You are advocating wrongness, wrongdoing. That's why you're incorrect. See, when you're incorrect, it leads to violence. It leads to wrongdoing. That's why it's important to understand the difference between right and wrong and the difference between truth and falsehood. Because when we believe in falsehoods like authority, invariably wrong is going to be done because we've accepted that into our worldview. That's why we have to be right or correct. We have to know the truth. Not believe in anything, know the truth. Again, for people who happen to come at this even from a religious perspective, and I gave a quote from Jesus about last week from the New Testament, the book of Matthew, how he didn't come to bring peace. He came to stir things up here because this world needs stirring up and to turn people against each other, actually. Those who were for the truth and those who were for the violence ideology. And again, that doesn't mean that I accept Jesus as a historical figure. I understand astrotheology. You know, people write and say, oh, you do understand, Jesus was a fiction. It doesn't matter, folks. I get the philosophy of the words. That's what's important. You want to split hairs about whether somebody existed or not, and that's what you want to make your whole, energy spent toward. Go ahead. I think that's useless. If there's wisdom in something, then I'm going to follow it. I'm going to put my energy behind that. I follow where the truth leads. That's the only thing I follow. I'm not a follower, except of the truth. I don't follow anything that goes on in this world. I follow the truth, which exists inherently and independently of anything that's going on in this world. The truth is simply that which is. It doesn't change. Things that take place in this world, this is the place of all change. But that doesn't mean we can't understand truth and put it into practice in our lives. It means it's not inherent to physical circumstances or conditions here. It exists completely independently. It exists inherently in and of itself, regardless of what happens to be taking place. So that's the force I follow, the force of truth, which leads to the expansion of consciousness, which is love. That's why truth comes first in the equation: truth, love, freedom. The true great work, the threefold great work, the 3-in-1. Truth has to come first. because your actions have to be based on correctness, rightness. You have to understand what natural law is and get it right, and then base your actions on that. Then you're acting in harmony with truth. Then that is the expression of love. To actually do that work is the expression of love, to put it into action. That's doing the will, capital W. And then the expression or the result will be freedom, true freedom, capital F. It's a progression. You can't take it out of order. Just like you can't take the trivium out of order, you can't take the great work steps out of order. Truth, love, freedom. Love doesn't come first. Truth comes first. The acceptance of truth is the expression of love. And then the manifestation is freedom. So going back to the concept that either you're an anarchist or a archonist, either you accept the non-aggression principle and sovereignty, or you believe in master-slave relationships and violence to keep it that way. There is no in-between. Get out of the head cage, folks, of thinking that there are gradations when it comes to this. There's not. It's all one way. The truth is all one way. It's extremity. People will say, Mark, you're an extremist. Yes, I'm an extremist because the truth is extreme. You need to get out of all of the mind control. If you're still believing any amount of government, you're under mind control. You're still in the head cage to a degree. You may be in less of it if you believe in minarchy or, constitutional republic than people who advocate, socialism or communism or fascism or other forms of oppressive government regimes. But you're still in the head cage. You're still under mind control. Go all the way, folks. This is why I keep repeating the phrase of wisdom given by the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. And again, whether you believe this is a physical, historical being or not, that's not relevant here. Again, I get what astrotheology is. I talked about it enough on my show. I think I understand it pretty extensively, actually. We're not splitting hairs. We're talking about the wisdom, the idea here, the philosophy. He said there's only two mistakes you can make on the path to truth, not starting and not going all the way. For those who are already on the path, don't make the mistake of stopping and setting up your tent halfway up the mountain. Go all the way to the peak, all the way to the summit. You'll get a better view from up there. Trust me. Don't trust me, just do it, actually. Just go all the way. You'll see the truth as it really is, the world as it really is from that peak, that summit. So again, all of these statists, these archonists, these ones who want to advocate the continuation of master-slave relationships, basically they are advocating slavery. If you advocate for the continuance of government, you are an advocate of human slavery. This is what people don't understand. And they want to say that's an extreme point of view. It is absolutely an extreme point of view. It's a point of view from having gone all the way in consciousness. Not looking at it from a distorted lens of mind control. Go all the way to get out of the mind control and you will understand all government is inherently illegitimate because it is based in violence. Is there a right to conduct violence? No, there is not. So all forms of government are inherently illegitimate when it comes to moral law. The right to rule does not exist in nature. The moral obligation to obey a ruler and their arbitrary dictates does not exist in nature. No one has that moral obligation. You have only a moral obligation to follow the moral law, to follow conscience, common sense, of what is right because it does not cause harm to another, and what is wrong because it does cause harm to another. That's what you have a moral obligation to obey. And again, that means that those are the rules. Natural law is the rules. Cosmic spiritual law. They're always the rules. They're always in place. Anarchy is not the absence of rules. Anarchy is the absence of rulers. Understand the distinction. It means there are no masters and no slaves here. We don't have that state. That's why we have slavery, because we don't have anarchy externally. Again, we can flip it over and look at the internal world within a person. That's where there needs to be rulership. That's where you need to be the archon. Within, not externally without trying to rule someone else. You need to rule the kingdom of the self, the kingdom of one. That's what you need to rule. We need 7 billion monarchies. Mon, one, archon, ruler. Mon, archon, from Greek roots, meaning one ruler. Well, if there's one ruler, internally, you are ruling your own house. You are ruling your own kingdom that exists within you. You are ruling your consciousness. You are ruling your thoughts, your emotions, your actions. It's called self-control, the only form of control that is real. One ruler. That's the kind of archon I want to see. Self-archons. Not archons who are trying to control others. That's external archonism. Okay? Internal, being the internal archon means you are a self-ruler. You govern the self, which is the only form of governing of control that is real, self-control. Meaning you control your thoughts, your emotions, and actions such that you live in the non-aggression principle, do not commit initiatory violence, initiatory force against others without the right to do so. You never have the right to initiate force against others. Do you have a right to defend, to use violence to use force once violence has been conducted against you? Yes, you do. That's retaliatory. Defensive, retaliatory. You are responding to something that has already been conducted against you. See, when someone tries to take someone's right to walk unaccosted on the street and to keep their property, okay? I have my wallet in my pocket. That's my property. Whatever is in there is my property. I'm walking down the street. My body is my property. I have the inherent right to keep that property safe and protected and not have it be accosted and put under threat and jeopardy by another person who is going to initiate violence against my will. If I respond to that act of violence when someone comes up, holds a weapon up to me and says, "Give me your wallet," and I respond to it by taking a gun out of my... Okay, we're back. This is What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. We're talking about the inherent right to defend oneself against violence and how that should never be even attempted to be taken away from anybody. Here on the show today, I ended the last part of the show by talking about if you respond to violence with force, that's an inherent right. You don't have to make that choice. You can make a different choice. You could sit there and take it. You could ask the person to stop. But we have to understand that the right is still there to respond with force if that's what we choose to do. Because the person has no right to continue to commit that act. And The one who doesn't wish it to continue because they're being harmed by it has a right to put that act down by whatever amount of force is necessary to put it down, up to and including deadly force. So I had a couple of quotes by Samuel Adams that I read last week, and I want to repeat one of them and break it down a little bit more. And then we're going to go to the phones. Samuel Adams, of course, is who I quoted for this year's Free Your Mind 2 conference. I'm sorry, next year, technically. It's going to be 2.